Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar this morning. My name is Karen O'Neill. I'm the Director of Career Services, and we're happy to have you at this webinar titled Why Veterans Excel in Security Careers. I have to say I'm super excited about this session. You're going to hear some great information today. And before I introduce our other panelists, then I'd like to cover just a few quick housekeeping items. We are using the GoToWebinar platform and you're in listen only mode. We don't expect any technical problems at all, but if there are any, then you can just jump off and jump right back in, and that typically fixes it. If you do have any questions today, then use the question and answer section and we'll make sure to get those questions answered for you. We will also be recording this, so you'll have access to it later if you would like that. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first panelist. Nicole Branning has been working with veterans transitioning into the IT field and project management for over 10 years. Nicole, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you, Karen. I'd like to introduce to the call today Barry Crum. He is a U.S. Army retired officer and a former company executive. In his career, he was full-time in the IT world at an enterprise level company. He was also a former deputy CIO for over a 600,000 member organization, and he's an internationally recognized technical instructor with over 7 years of full-time experience in the classroom. So welcome to the call, Barry.
Well, thank you.
So Barry, tell us a little bit about what skills do you think military veterans possess that will help them excel in careers in IT security?
Well, first, let me thank you for your hard work in putting together this timely webinar. Thank you for providing me an opportunity to address this issue. That's an excellent question. What skills, unique values do vets bring to help them excel in careers in the IT field? There's over 3 million cybersecurity jobs available out there in the world today, over 500,000 in the US alone.
Wow.
Veterans have got a lot of skills that'll help them that will serve them well in IT security. As a group, I would say that service members have excellent communication skills, both verbal and written. We're accustomed to making status reports, keeping the boss informed on the situation. We know how to document situations, document events. We've got superior experiences in the valued areas of strong teamwork, detailed planning. Some of us have done more planning of missions and tasks in a month than many civilian supervisors have done in 2 or 3 years. We're used to working in teams. We're used to getting the mission accomplished. We know how to reach out to other people who have other skills or different or more proficient skill sets we might have. We're taught how to analyze positions. We're taught how to develop multiple courses of action to reach the same goal. There's more than one way to get the job done. Veterans are taught critical thinking skills. They're taught to have a critical point of view. We can visualize a threat from an enemy's perspective. We can think like the bad guy and see weaknesses and defenses. And that applies well to IT. I think that we bring a commitment and a passion to our work. And all these skills that I've mentioned, that they serve us well in IT security. We can learn the security skills, the scripting skills we might need for the job, but we've already got the soft skills that we need that are so hard to develop and take a lot of time, frankly, to develop. What do I mean by soft skills? Soft skills are people skills, communication skills, attitudes. Veterans are proven to be disciplined. We work well under pressure. We know how to lead. We know how to follow. We adapt quickly to change. We know how to protect sensitive information systems. And these are the kinds of skills that I think make us quite successful in the IT security field.
Absolutely. Barry, you make a great point. Soft skills are so important when you're out in the job market, because that's oftentimes what people are looking for, is somebody that can really perform and communicate well within an organization. And it's such a challenging thing if you've never developed those skills. And I know that's something that the military really works towards honing that skill set. Tell us a little bit about, I hear all the time, from employers over the years that they're looking for someone with security clearance. Tell me about what security clearance really is and how important that is in the IT field, and does that open doors for you?
That's a great question. Well, for starters, in many cases, you don't need a security clearance to work cybersecurity in the private sector. However, a lot of those jobs do require a background check, and your clearance is an assurance that you'll have no issues there. But you do need a security clearance if you want to work for the Department of Defense. You do need a security clearance if you want to work for a company that has DoD contract work, and there's a lot of work out there for that.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of jobs advertise they're looking for cleared personnel. The good news is that your clearance, if it's an active clearance, it will transfer, right? And if you've had one and it's recent, then getting it reinstated is really generally not an issue. Having a security clearance is similar to having a special certification or a degree on your resume. It makes you more marketable. It helps you to stand out from other candidates. It increases your job prospects. An active clearance may also increase your earnings potential. There's a lot of companies that advertise for cleared jobs or security clearance jobs. They will often list the clearances level that's required or the clearance level that's preferred. You'll often see that in the job description. So having a clearance in hand will save an employer a lot of money, and in case of a top secret clearance, a lot of time as well.
Yeah, and let me chime in on that, Nicole, because we do see all the time, we have employers who reach out to us about hiring people who do have clearance and certifications. And so we always recommend our students put that clearance right up at the very top of their resume where it's very visible as they're on the job market. We also have a handful of employers who have access to be able to check the status on security clearance. So when somebody, a lot of times when somebody gets out of the military, they're not sure exactly about when their clearance is going to expire. And so some of these companies who have access to that, that information, they'll actually work with veterans who have just gotten out to keep their status active as they're going through additional training and job search and that kind of thing. So it's because it's easier if your status is active to keep it active versus when it expires. So, yeah.
Wow, Karen, that's some great information. And you mentioned companies and companies that will help individuals keep their clearance active. Is it, I hear all the time that companies sometimes prioritize hiring veterans. Can you tell us a little bit about what that's like in the job market and what types of companies typically do that?
There's a lot of employers who have a real focus on making sure that any of our veterans who are moving back into the civilian workforce do have a priority with, you know, hiring. So that's very often an initiative, an active initiative that employers have. And then as Barry mentioned, there are also companies that are more Department of Defense contractors, and a lot of times those are the veterans are the very best candidates for those positions. So also, you know, if you look at USA Jobs and federal hiring, then veteran status is another thing that the federal government prioritizes as well.
Absolutely. One of the things that I've seen as well is several nonprofits that are out there that assist veterans, like Hire Our Heroes, and several groups that are available on LinkedIn that provide some resources for veterans that are transitioning and tips and tricks, things like how to keep that clearance active so they're better equipped for transitioning in their job search. So I've seen several things like that. And if you're looking for information on that, get on LinkedIn. Get out there, make sure your profile is updated. I know we have some free resources we can send everyone at the end of this call to kind of show you how to do that if you're not familiar with LinkedIn. But there's groups like Hire Our Heroes that are out there as well that can help you with what to do and how to look for those companies that prioritize hiring veterans.
Well, and actually, speaking of LinkedIn, LinkedIn does provide 1 year of free premium account for veterans. So any, you know, I think that it's helpful to be strategic about that and maybe hold off on that until right before you're ready to start actively looking for a job.
That's a great tip, because lots of hiring managers are on LinkedIn, and
Yeah.
having access for a year for free for the premium membership is a very valuable tool when you start your searching, right? So, um, Barry, tell us a little bit about some different certifications and um, security certifications and why they're important.
Well, that's a great question. The importance of security certifications and the kinds of certifications that are out there. There's a ton of certifications out there, and definitely some certifications are more valuable than others. Where you want to go with your certs, where you want to start, really depends on where you want to end up, right? If you're looking to work for the Department of Defense or as a contractor for Department of Defense, the DoD directive, the Department of Defense Directive 8140, provides guidance on how the workforce manages what they call information assurance functions. The DoD 8140 replaced the 8570, if you've ever heard about that one. But the directive talks about information assurance technical and information assurance management positions, and those have specific requirements, and those requirements include some certifications. Right, so your CompTIA is a vendor neutral certification organization. CompTIA A Plus and CompTIA Net Plus will give you IA Technical Level 1 cert. Your CompTIA Security Plus cert will give you both IA Management Level 1 and IA Technical Level 2 certification. And that's what you need to have if you're going to actually have access or hands-on to government. So you need the IA Level 2 certification. And your CompTIA Security Plus covers that as well. I have CompTIA Sec Plus. I also have CompTIA Net Plus. If you're looking at an entry-level certification, Microsoft has got a whole bunch. They call them the Microsoft Technology Associate certifications. It's an entry-level cert. That validates your fundamental technical knowledge for people that are looking to start a career in technology. The MTA is an excellent starting point. It can put you on the path to a higher Microsoft certification. Microsoft has higher level certs, such as the Microsoft Certified Solutions Associate, and the Microsoft Certified Solutions Developer, Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer. Cisco offers an associate level certification called CCNA, Cisco Certified Networking Associate. That's a great place to start for those who are interested in running networks. One of the students I had mentored, brand new to the IT field, he took and passed his CCNA exam while he was in class, and he was offered a starting job at $65,000 with no experience while he was in class. Your certifications are really important. They separate you from other people. They separate you, especially from people that have no certs. One of my, several of my, I've been teaching the students the Security IT Associate program for a couple of years. Several of my students took their Microsoft Technology Associate exams while we were still in class together. One of my students, Robert, recruiter called me. Robert had listed me as a reference. The recruiter called me and spoke, and at the end of our conversation, the recruiter told me that she was going to hire Robert. I said, well, can I ask? I said, what? I said, you got a lot of applications for that job, right? She said, oh, I got thousands of applications for this job. I said, why'd you follow up on Robert? She goes, he had a certification. I said, it was a Microsoft Technology Associate certification. She said, yeah, that's an entry-level cert, but that put him above the 98% of the people that applied for the job that had no certification.
Yeah.
And so he was offered a job while we were in class together. He was just so excited about that. I had another student, Bill, same class. He had taken his MTAs. He posted that on his LinkedIn, right? His LinkedIn's kind of important. And he called me. He was all excited. He said, "Man, you won't believe what happened." I said, "What happened?" He goes, "I got off." I said, "I passed my MTA. You know that. I told you in class." He said, "I put that on LinkedIn." I said, "Yeah, what's going on?" He goes, "Got off for a job." I said, "What was it?" He said, "It's entry level network technician." He goes, "It's this much money." He says, "Wow." I said, "It's really great." What gets better? I said, "What?" He said, "A week later, I got another job." He said, it's this level position for this much money. I said, wow. I said, so what are you gonna do? He said, I'm gonna wait. I said, what are you waiting for? He says, I'm going to take and pass my CompTIA Sec Plus, and when I do, it's going to be a better job offer for more money. And he did, and he has, and he's very excited about that. But the certifications prove that you got the skills. It makes you stand out above everyone else that doesn't have a cert, which is quite a few people looking at these entry-level jobs.
Absolutely. Those are some great points. And I know, Karen, you're speaking with employers every day. And from
Yeah.
that perspective, when I know we send candidates over all the time. Tell me a little bit about your experience in working with companies and the value of certifications that they see.
Well, when you think about it, everybody who's in IT, then they're all educating themselves about the latest changes, and IT changes very rapidly. So the majority of the hiring managers and people who are actually hiring for IT roles are people who have gone through the certification process themselves. And so they understand immediately the knowledge and information that people have to really have intrinsically before they can do well on these exams. So it makes it work for employers. They can trust, because people have gone through and taken the certifications, that they have a certain level of knowledge and experience.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
That's a great point. Barry, you touched on this a minute ago, but I really wanted to make sure that we covered this because I get this question all the time, which is where should I start? So, and I know you mentioned you have to think about the future a little bit, but talk a little bit about where someone should get started and what certifications are important, just specifically like, hey, I want to get into security, but I don't have any background. I don't know anything about the computer other than I turn on my laptop.
Wow. You know, where to get to start? That's a unique challenge, I think, for the military, right? Where do we go when we want to leave the military and go into the civilian workforce? I've been around the military for over 6 decades, right? My father served. I was born while he was serving overseas. And one of the main challenges I've seen deals with the fact that the government has made so many choices for us. We may not be equipped to think about the options that are available to us when we leave the service. When you think about it, the service tells us where we're going to live, where we're going to go, where we're going to work, what schools we're going to take, what jobs we're qualified for, what jobs we're going to get, what jobs we can do, what jobs we can't do. They give us a rule book for everything. Right? I talked to a full colonel one day at the Corps headquarters. He was coming up on 30 years of mandatory retirement, had a mandatory retirement date, too young to draw Social Security, right? So I've got no clue what to do. No clue what to do. He's been in service for 30 years. He's retired in a few months. No clue what to do. So one of the biggest challenges I've seen is trying to figure out, what do you want to do when you get out? What types of jobs are out there? What type of training do you need for those jobs? There's a couple of places to start. One is to translate your military skills, your military training, and your experience into civilian terminology, right? Mil speak versus civilian speak. Civilians don't speak the same language we do in the military, and it doesn't translate well. But the reality is that we've got a lot of skills. We've got a lot of skills that translate. We've done a lot of things that we do in the security world. We've done that in the military. If you ever run an operation, you ever led a detail, you ever led a team, that's project management. So you talk about your project management skills. If you've ever reacted to an attack or incursion, well, that's incident response, right? If you've got a standard loadout or a standard set of equipment, that in security IT would call it a baseline. Right? If you've ever changed the keys in the radio, if you've ever used a KIV7 or a KG, well, that uses AES encryption. Advanced encryption system security is the strongest security system out there. That's computer encryption. There's no stronger encryption on the planet than that. In IT security, we talk about security being assured by the AAA process: authentication, authorization, and accounting. If you've ever checked someone's ID, that's authentication. If you've ever checked someone against an access roster, that's authorization. You ever filled out a note on a duty log or written an accounting statement? That's accounting. In the IT world, we just have computers do those processes. So you got to begin to think about how to translate your civilian experience and work and knowledge into your military experience into civilian speed. You've got to figure out what kind of jobs are out there. You've got to talk to people in the kinds of jobs that you're looking for, right? You've got to do a search. You've got to join your LinkedIn. You've got to do a search for things. Figure out what career you're interested in and talk to people in that career. Ask them, what do you do in your job? What is your day like? What do you like about your job? What don't you like about your job? What's your 5-year plan? How did you get to where you are? Those things can help you figure out your way ahead. The other thing is to talk to people like Karen, who's been in the business a long time, helping people make these kinds of transitions. Use these resources. I think, Nicole, you'll probably provide your contact information. Karen provide her contact information at the end of the seminar. Use those resources because these people, Karen and Nicole, great people, have got a great amount of experience in helping you make those kinds of transitions. But part of it is just figure out what's out there. How do I fit in? How do I know I fit in? I'm going to have to ask a bunch of questions. Find people in those jobs, ask questions. That's where I would start.
Yeah.
That's a
And
great recommendation. And I know, Karen, you have a lot of
yeah,
experience with this, right? So you probably get people that come to you all the time that have never even developed a resume outside of the military.
right.
Tell us a little bit about those experiences and some of the things that you have them focus on.
The thing that's really important is to match things up. So when you have some ideas about what you want to do in the future, then you also need to look at your history and be able to talk about the things that are relevant. And Barry was talking about so many. There's that piece about translating it from military to civilian, but then there's also what are the things that are going to transfer and help me in a new position. And so being able to do some research, and as Barry said, you can do that by talking to people. You can also do a lot of that research online. We have a whole webinar that we offer around navigating career transition, and it talks about how to do some research on jobs and what those jobs are going to entail, and the technical aspects as well as the soft skills, as Barry mentioned. And so often what happens is that you can look back at your history and go, oh wow, I actually understand this, that, and the other that's going to apply for something that makes sense in the future. And so you can, it's kind of up to each individual to some extent to put those pieces together, because it is also important to recognize, like, what are the things that you're really interested in? What do you have some passion about? Employers are looking for all the time, like, they're interested in hiring people who are curious and who are lifelong learners, who really want to grow in whatever they're hiring for. So if they're hiring for IT, as we're talking about today, then as we mentioned, IT changes so often. And it really, one of the biggest requirements from employers is that they hire people who are interested in doing that learning and constantly upgrading themselves and bringing in new information so that they can apply that to the job that they're doing. So those are some ideas. And that's, I would take it as an exploration, really. It's when you're first getting out, explore as much as you can and then take action. Because what happens is that you learn a lot through the action steps you take. And we see that all the time as well.
One of the things that I've seen, and those are some great examples of things that you've seen over the years. One of the things that I've seen as well is that I'll be speaking with a veteran and they'll talk about their MOS and what they were doing in the military, and they don't really understand. It's like that MOS doesn't exactly coordinate with what they want to do when they get out. And they're like, I don't even know what to do. Do I put that on my resume? What does this really mean? And most civilians have no idea actually what that means. Barry, can you tell us a little bit about some transferable skills that they should focus on instead of not necessarily focusing on that MOS? Because I know a lot of people kind of get stuck in this is what I did, what do I do with that?
Well, yeah, again, I would talk about the soft skills, the leadership experience, the teamwork experience, the problem-solving experience. If you've led a team, if you've worked an issue, you've done some program or project management. That's the way we talk about the civilian world: project management, program management. You led a detail, right? That's mid-level management. You've developed a plan. That's program and project management. You talk about, well, first of all, sit down with somebody that knows how civilians are looking for things written on your resume and recruiting. So talk to Karen, talk to somebody like that that can help you translate things from military speak into civilian speak. Like I said, you've done a lot of security stuff in the military, stuff that can translate. It's a ton of things. The biggest challenge, I think, people do talk about their MOS. Nobody knows what an MOS is outside the military or outside the military community. You've got to talk about your job skills, the types of your level of management, for example. What level of management did you have, right? Entry level, mid-level. Talk about those kinds of skills in terms of where you fit in your organization. Try and translate it to things that work. If you're looking at a job in the IT world, try to translate to positions in the IT world. Technician, support, help desk, those kinds of things. A lot of your skills will transfer if you just translate them properly.
Absolutely. Karen, did you want to say something?
I do. One other, wait, hang on, because I think there, okay. Yes, have to have the ability to speak. So another thing, and that's my point. One thing that happens in the military is that there's a lot of focus on teamwork. And so you're talking about what your team can do and that kind of thing. When you move into civilian and when you're interviewing for jobs, it's important to be able to talk about what you have done and what you can do. And so you gotta, and this is true for everybody who's looking for work, you need to be able to brag on yourself. It's a little bit tricky, but it's really important to do. And so if you step back and think from a third party, what are all the things that you've actually accomplished? And you have a big long list. I've had people come to me periodically who are like, no, I don't have anything. And I tell you what, there's always something. And so it's just a matter of being able to explore and understand what those things are. It's really important to brag on yourself in the job search process.
You're 100% correct. When I talk to a lot of people that are transitioning in some way, and the second they're in the middle of a transition, sometimes they don't even realize that they need to update things on their resume and their LinkedIn, because right now your situation has changed from where it was 3 months ago, and you're really in a mode of you're selling yourself, right? And how do you really make people understand what your skills are? That doesn't mean that that's going to be your job forever, right? But you need to be able to talk about what your skills are. If you're a self-starter, you're self-sufficient, which we often see most military people that are retiring out of the military, those are all requirements to have been in the military, right? They ingrain that into you. You just don't even think about it anymore, right?
Right. But it's a crime in the military not to show up for work on time.
Absolutely.
We don't even think about it, right? There's a whole bunch of skills that we have that we don't even think about because that's just the way it is. But the ability to be a self-starter, self-sufficient, show up for work on time, know what your skill sets required for your job are, to carry things out with little to no supervision. Those are skill sets that you need to explain to the civilian world, because it's ingrained in us in the military, but it's not ingrained in the civilian world. What do you mean you're upset with me because I didn't show up for work on time? Hello, right?
And another point that I want to make too is in the military, there's a real regular process of evaluations and feedback. And so all of that information is available to you when you leave the military. And it's really important to take that information and use that to be able to explain about what you have done and show those transferable skills. So take advantage of the information that has been gathered for you and that you've been involved in gathering as you've gone through your experience in the military. That can be very helpful, especially with kind of what we talk about a lot of times is painting a picture. You know, you want to be able to help people understand what kind of environment you were in, because that's going to help them know what kind of environment you can be helpful for in the future. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And we see people that are making that transition, that may have made the transition in the last couple of years or just now transitioning. And one of the things I think Barry and you and I were talking about this the other day is really thinking about the next 3 to 5 years as your next
Right.
mission. And tell us a little bit about, I know you have some experience when you transitioned out of the military. What did you tell yourself for your next 3 to 5 year mission, what that would look like?
Wow, what did I tell myself? Yeah, I couldn't think more than about 3 to 5 years out, right? Because my whole life, outside from college, like I said, I grew up in the military. I chose where I went to college, but I joined the military myself following college. And the Army always told me where to go, what to do, what my job was, right? So you got to sit down and say, where do I want to be in 3 to 5 years? What do I want to be doing for the next 3 to 5 years? Where in the world am I willing to go to do that for the next 3 to 5 years? What kind of salary needs do I have for the next 3 to 5 years? Because guess what? No one's telling you what money you're going to make. You can make whatever money you want, except, in the Army, there's a pay scale. They tell you what you're making. But in the civilian world, you can go look for jobs that pay different amounts. There's a big difference in the pay for jobs out there. Those are things to consider as well. Medical and dental benefits. What kind of benefits does the company offer? That's a big one, because in the military, that's all taken care of. That's something you got to start thinking about. I got lost in the question. What else we're talking about? What my 3 to 5 year plan? Sorry. This is what happens when you have two level 3 TBIs. I get lost where I was. My 3 to 5 year plan. So you talk to people that are out there and see what kind of jobs they're doing. If you've got colleagues that have left the military being successful, what kinds of things did they go through? I talked to a bunch of people that left the service about the 20 to 25 year mark myself, to see what they were looking at, what they had gone through, try to learn from their mistakes. I certainly didn't want to be like the full colonel I talked to 30 years ago. So I don't know what I'm going to do. So, sir, your mandatory retirement ceremony is next month. He goes, I don't know what I'm going to do. I've just never had to think about it. I'm lost. Right. So talk to recruiters, talk to friends, talk to former military personnel, talk to Karen, talk to Nicole, right? They've helped people through that process. But you've got to sit down and say, what kind of job do I want? What kind of salary do I want? Where do I want to work in the world? Do I want to work from home? Do I work from office? How far am I willing to commute? Ton of thoughts about it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about job outlook, because I know everyone wants to know, when you hear the word security, what kind of job roles are available in the field. Barry, tell us a little bit about your experience, and I know, Karen, you've probably got a lot to say about this as well.
Well, for starters, there's 500,000 unfilled IT jobs in the US, right? So the jobs are out there. Typical responsibilities, there is no typical day in the life of IT security, that's a fact. But there's some typical jobs that you can expect to start with. Desktop support, computer technician, help desk technician, IT support specialist. It can be anything from, if you're a computer technician, that would be, how to build the computer, how to diagnose hardware problems, fixing hardware issues, computer technicians. Desktop support technician, these guys and gals are the first line of response when there's a problem on the company's computers. They're going to try and troubleshoot either in person or online to figure out how to get the computer back in the proper shape. So you've got a wide range of tasks: configuring, testing, troubleshooting, networking issues, wireless issues, setting up user accounts, formatting, setting up desktops, setting up laptops, those kinds of things. A help desk technician would be diagnosing any technical problems for customers or colleagues. You're not normally responsible for fixing the problem, but you're responsible for figuring out what the problem is so that someone else can come by and fix it, right? So there's that support aspect of it as well. You could be responsible for setting up, installing, and troubleshooting technology and software, upgrading, servicing, maintaining stuff. There's a ton of jobs out there. The type of jobs that you qualify for, it just really depends on what you're looking for and how well you sell yourself, because there's a ton of entry-level jobs. In terms of mid-level jobs, most companies will hire out of their entry-level position people for those positions. So a lot of us go into work in an entry-level job, and for those, a lot of the military quickly move up to mid-level jobs from those positions. But there's a ton of jobs out there, 500,000 unfilled jobs right now.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Yeah, Karen, tell us about your experience, because I know you're talking with employers all the time about some of these positions that are available.
Yes, and I totally agree with the things that you shared, Barry. And I would also say that the thing that's really interesting about IT to me is that when you go through and learn some foundational things with IT, then there are so many different paths that you can take from that foundational level. And so what we find all the time is our students, as they go through their program, they're able to identify pieces of the things that they're learning that are of more interest to them. And then that also helps them understand a clearer pathway that they can take for the future. There's just a whole lot of different positions, because when you think about it, every single company needs an IT person. Everyone does. And these days there are more people who are working remotely than in the past, and so what happens with that is that there needs to be additional IT support for that. And so when you think about any IT position, the majority of them do require a lot of collaboration with teammates and working together. There are some that are and there are certainly pathways where people are working more individually, but the majority of the work that people do in IT, it's very closely aligned with the goals of the organization and the ability for the organization to stay on top of their requirements and their innovation and all of that. So being involved at that level is certainly a possibility too, where you understand more about the business objectives and the goals of the organization. And so I think it's also very important to look at the kinds of companies and understand what kind of environments do you thrive in? Are you somebody who wants to work with a smaller team or a larger team? Are you somebody who prefers a more formal business kind of organization that maybe in the financial sector or different things like that? Or are you somebody who prefers a more casual environment and the innovation that comes with a startup? So there are lots of different options in terms of company culture as well. And if you have your basic foundation of IT understanding, then you can work in all kinds of different environments. We've also had students who have done things like, maybe they enjoyed their IT work, but they also enjoyed something else. And they were able to put those things together, and their IT knowledge and understanding helped them to be able to be a candidate of choice in a different area. One that comes to mind, this guy enjoyed working with his hands as well too. So he worked with a tile company and was a salesperson. But the reason the tile company chose him as a candidate is because he's also doing all their IT work and making sure their website's running and all of that. So these things can fit together really well.
Okay, you're so right, because technology is everywhere, right? And so with so many people working from home, I think everyone, regardless of their role, probably feels like they're a little bit of a help desk person these days.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Barry, you were going to say something.
I was just going to say that you're so right, Karen. Once you get into the IT, the where you can go from there is just wide open. One of my former soldiers, he came to me. His IT experience was he was trained how to repair circuit cards. So if the circuit card of the weapon systems wasn't working, his job was to solder the parts on. That was his IT experience. He's since got out of the Army. He's got his own business. His last contract, he was just awarded a $40 million contract. Okay.
Mm.
He runs his own business, and three of my former colonels work for him. Okay. I've got another soldier, a former soldier of mine. Here he is a few years after leaving the Army. He runs a business section for a large company. It's $500 million worth of business that he oversees. $500 million he oversees here in Austin, right? But he started off brand new in IT. I knew him when he did that. So it's a ton of jobs out there, a ton of experience out there. IT is such a wonderful gateway. If you just get in, take an entry level job, and move from there, right? The hard part is just making that transition from your mil speak, your military experience, into taking the right classes, getting the right cert, and just getting out there and making things start.
Absolutely. That's some great advice. Karen, can you tell me what advice you would provide to a veteran seeking to join the civilian workforce?
Well, as Barry said, you got to do that translation piece. So that's really important. And then, pick a path and go for it, because that's going to get you the most momentum. And there are, we have so many resources. There are lots of resources available. So pick a path and go for it. Go down that road and start applying the things that you're learning, whether it's the technical information or also the whole, what we call professional readiness. It's, being able to market yourself, like Nicole said, to, you have to sell yourself. So get all that stuff together, get your resume together and your LinkedIn profile, and learn how to use all these tools that are so common in the civilian workforce, and just start moving with it. Put a plan together. Yeah.
That sounds great. Barry, what final advice do you have for people that you would say to joining the civilian workforce?
Well, just to piggyback on what Karen said, you need to take a class on how to leverage LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a mystery for most of us in the military. I took a great class with you guys, and it's a wonderful class. Taught me how to use LinkedIn, and that is a big key to making it work. Reach out to former military people in the community and see what they've done to make that transition. Talk to people who've helped military veterans transition successfully into the civilian world, because they do understand what you're going through. And just put one foot from the other and make it happen. You're responsible for your own future at this point, right? Your career is wide open. Just take the first step and start making it happen for yourself.
Absolutely. That's some great advice. One thing, a couple of things that I'd like for everyone to do that we've mentioned LinkedIn several times. So we have lots of valuable resources that are free. So if you are attending the webinar, we will be sending out a link with this recording and some other webinars that we have on leveraging LinkedIn. I would encourage you to follow us on LinkedIn because we do post resources that are out there. I know Karen's team is very active, and we post things about upcoming webinars. We just had a webinar on federal jobs and things that people would need to do on their resume, where they would find the different positions. So we're pretty active, and that's a great start, is to follow us, and we'll be glad to share lots of free resources with you. I'd also like to encourage you to get in touch with us. I know Karen and I are both out there. I'm sure Barry's out there on LinkedIn as well. Connect with us. Our contact information is out there. We'll be glad to answer any questions. You'll also receive an email with a copy of my contact information in it as well. So if you have any questions on next steps and where to get started and some of the good certifications that we talked about, and really those the footprint for yourself over the next 3 to 5 years, we'd be glad to sit down and talk with you about what that looks like. And I want to thank Barry and Karen for joining me today. And we will be sending that information out to everybody on the call.
All right.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you, Nicole. It was a lot of fun. Perfect.